I would like to try and show these things. So I'm going to present my screen then.
Sure, sir. Sure.
I hope the screen is visible.
Yes, sir. It's visible.
Is the slide visible now?
Yes, sir. Slide is visible.
Okay. So building information modeling, the term, it's now not very uncommon term. It's very well-known term. And in this, everybody knows that it's building information modeling or building information model. If we talk about the individual, exercises of the build practices, but the building portion inside it. One second. Yeah. So the building portion inside it is rather not specific to the built environment. It's a way how you do the information modeling. So your entire visualization of the model is dependent on the information. So that's what this term is meaning over here. So the major portion is this, neither the building nor the model. It's the major portion of this BIM is information. And whenever we are trying to create a BIM model, we are trying to not have just a pretty 3D model and pretty visualization out of it, but the usable information which would be provided to the site people, which will be provided and shared among the various different building professionals, consultants who are involved in the said project. So we all have seen this kind of environment, for example, and from this environment, we have gone to this environment, and this has been a huge leap. So from the manual drafting to the CAD practices, what have we achieved? What what was lacking in the manual practice? In my opinion, we were never lacking anything. Beautiful buildings, detailed buildings, and beautiful project management. Very elaborate project management has happened in the past with the manual work, manual methodologies or manual design methodologies also. But then again, the pace at which the built environment was needed, this pace requirement was changing over the time. And eventually, with the advent of CAD and with ingress of computer-aided design, and here we are not talking specifically about 3D CAD, 2D CAD, which was prevalent, although 3D CAD has been there, but mainly the design practices, the documentation practices has been around the 2D CAD. So 2D CAD, using 2D CAD, we mainly achieve the superpower of copy paste, superpower of iteration, superpower of undo and redo, and that's how our iterative speed has evolved quite by quite a margin. But then again, with these, eventually we were not able to solve one very important thing, and that was coordination. The coordination was still manual, it was not automated, it was eventually we were getting into overlaying one plan over other, one drawing over other, and manually perceiving where was the fault. And all the, uh, you know, uh, processing of the documentation was manual, but like you were reading the drawing and you were making the meaning of it and you were making the quantification out of it manually. But then with the ingress of these kind of tools, when we say that there are no plans, no elevation, no section, no so everything is uh, into the model. It's not like there is no plan. It's like we are targeting one particular model, and this model is the source of a single source of truth for us. So here, uh, with this model, if I am uh, having a horizontal plane or cutting it with the horizontal plane, I am getting my floor plan. If I am cutting it with the vertical plane, I am getting a section. If uh, I am putting some parametric constraints to create a documentation, I am getting a schedule out of it, because the elements here are not just the cube, cuboid, or various different shapes, but these are representation of actual building element and actual building material. So these are basically the virtual replica of these actual happenings inside the project, and that's why these are identifiable with the help of our parametric inputs, and we are getting the parametric outputs which are usable as documentation. So basically, it's all about the information which are intelligently put together, being made dependable upon each other, so that we can put our formula, put our constraints, put our rules inside it, and then we get the documentation in the desired fashion and in the friendly towards our workflows. And that's how better coordination and better management is achieved. But the prerequisite is that you have to have a model, you have to have a detailed model in a desired manner. Okay, so if you see that if I come back to the question that uh, how it should be seen, how the various different personnel from different backgrounds or different portions of the construction practice, how they should think about them. So in my opinion, they should know that yeah, BIM can encompass all sorts of processes into each other, and it can wherever BIM is not applicable and some portion is done by, let's say, some simulation software. So BIM model should be or would be or could be able to provide the data, provide the input to that particular tool. And eventually, all sorts of these professionals have their tool embedded into this process. The tool name can vary, tool provider can vary. Maybe it Autodesk Revit, maybe it's Solibri from Nemetschek as a model checker tool. Maybe it's Synchro from Bentley as a 4D simulation tool. But uh, the tools are there for each and every construction professionals, which are to envisage about the building, which are uh, basically imagining the construction processes, which are planning the construction processes, and a little bit towards the execution also. If we get into the cyber physical systems, where the uh, digital inputs can be mounted onto the actual hardware, actual tools, then actual execution can also be linked with BIM. And that's why BIM is considered as the central point of DBE, or digital built environment. Okay, so this is a little bit of introduction into the BIM. Any questions till now?
Sir, yes, as you said that BIM is all about intelligent information. So we would like to understand in detail that what type of informations every building element should carry. in order to be a complete complete or can be understand by everyone in the project. Like what should be that
Okay.
informations?
So for that, let's try and understand that obviously we cannot discuss all kind of information or all information set, but in a conceptual manner, we can try and understand the basic difference between the 2D workflow or geometric data model with the 3D with parameter and behavior, so building data model. So in this case, or usually as per the CAD practices. So when I'm saying CAD practices as a representative of geometric data model, I am assuming that okay, this is a 2D CAD practices done usually. And having said that, it's possible that even the 2D CAD can be very parametric and even BIM-like parametric. But then again, there are constraints, and there are constraints, further constraints in actual practice. So in geometric data model, if you are looking at a room, so this room is actually created out of these two rectangles. So there are several lines, there are the space, or maybe the space contained inside them. But in a 2D CAD practice, in a geometric data model, you do not have any relation whatsoever on the elements of these rectangles with the elements which are there on the other side of it, and maybe the space which is contained inside it is having no relation whatsoever with these lines. But again, with the higher parametrics, it's feasible in 2D workflows also. But in building data model, what we have, if let's say in Revit or in ArchiCAD or in Vectorworks or in any BIM tool, if I'm having the requirement of creating a room, I would not be creating the lines in 2D fashion. I'll be creating these walls. And if I am changing the wall location, the space inside it is changing along with it, and the report coming out with the operations modification operation is in a different fashion. So this obviously, this workflow is more informative, and the earlier workflow is more just like representational, right? So this is the basic difference between GDM and BDM. So the information in informational pattern in which we need to work over here in BDM or building data model is in a sense that we are having all sorts of these building elements. Let's say if we are creating a wall inside Revit or inside ArchiCAD. So this is not just set of planes, but this is a wall tool, and inside the wall tool, I have inside the wall tool I have some properties, some behaviors associated, some layering structure, possibility of creating the layering structure, which is actually there in practice. So generally we have walls with various layers involved. It's not just a material wall in general, uh, and with the documentation of wall, with the insertion of wall inside a digital model, we have some expectation in terms of properties and behaviors. So the properties inside it, let's say thermal properties, let's say the analytical properties or strength related parameters, these are also part of the basic BIM workflows. So you can have the calculation of U values with the wall assemblies you are creating inside these BIM softwares. And the basic behavioral, one of the basic behavioral expectation out of any wall is if you are to insert, let's say, a door inside it. So this should create a hole inside this wall, and the volume that now will be reported of the wall should be reduced. So a very basic example, but you see this behavior, this actual requirement in construction practice is so very easily achieved in any BIM tool, right? And for that matter, inside these BIM tools, we have the relations between the objects. So hosting of objects onto other, objects or representation of building elements. The connection between, let's say a wall and a beam. So how a beam is basically cutting the volume out of wall, or how a beam and the slab is interacting with each other so that actual volume reporting happens, actual load scenario is created, so that how the slab is transferring the load onto beam, and the resulting analytical model is created, and maybe this analytical model can be sent into other analytical tools such as SIA, Freelo, StatPro, ETABS, and further designing and detailing can be done, and brought the analytical model can be brought back into the BIM authoring tool. So when I say BIM authoring tool, so majorly what I see as BIM tools, there is compartmentation. So BIM authoring tools and BIM management tools. So I hope all of you have heard about Revit. All of you might have heard about Navisworks or maybe Synchro. So authoring tools are, Revit is one of the authoring tool. ArchiCAD is one of the authoring tools where model is being created. And Navisworks is one of the BIM management tool where the created model is being utilized for retrieval of information in various different formats. Let's say for clash detection or collision detection or quantity takeoff, etc. Then BIM related or BIM connected analytical tool can also be there. So nowadays, BIM tools are having the analytical model being embedded inside the individual elements. So let's say if there is a column in or a structural column being created in Revit, so there is an associated analytical lines inside this column. If I am having a slab created, so there is an associated analytical plane with it. So this helps in the detailed design processes, detailed engineering processes, when you have analytical components being created alongside the representation of actual building elements. And these set of analytical components create analytical models in various formats. One such format, let's say, is SAF nowadays, created with the help of ArchiCAD, or with the help of the APIs inside, or program interface inside these tools. You can have the connection between already existing structural analysis tools, and some arrangements, like in the case of Autodesk Revit, you have the another Autodesk product called Autodesk Robot Structural Analysis. So from within Revit, you can go for the analytical detailing, analytical studies inside the robot structural analysis, and do the structural design there. Some advanced structural tools like Tekla, etc., are also there, which we can call, BIM authoring, but discipline specific BIM authoring. Okay, so by now I think everyone must have
Yeah.
had this feeling that BIM is all about, beyond the three dimensions. So BIM is also about the associated information, the cost and time dimensions, etc. So when you are having just 3D, it has been there all around from, let's say 30, 40 years ago. Also 3D modeling was there, still 3D modeling is there, and 3D modeling is still popular. But when you are attaching the properties and behaviors with the 3D model, then we are able to call it the information model or building information model. And this BIM, when exercised with time, obviously the BIM model is, or BIM tools are having this slot or having this functionality of attaching time, cost, and various other dimensions to it. But when you are attaching the model or model elements with time or schedule, then it's called 4D. When it is attaching the cost data, then it is being called 5D. Then there are, various different 6D, 7D, even 8D for, let's say, mm, uh, digital twin, etc. So these are various dimensions that are that were basically generated as part of, marketing terms. But nowadays these are turned into some kind of technical terms. Eventually, there are software typologies are associated with it. So these are some of the snapshots of, tools. Obviously, if some of you have used Revit, you would be identifying that these are the snapshots of Revit tools. Uh, this one architectural tools, this one structural tools, these ones are MAP related or system related tools. This snapshot is from ArchiCAD. So these individual tools are, as you can see, uh, the icon itself is telling us a story of, individual building elements or building element typologies. And when these building element representations are basically connected with the property and behavior possibilities, then we can call it as building element models. So some authors call it as BEM, but BEM is now a term also used for building energy models. So this might be confusing, but these are basically element models or element modeling possibilities using which you can create the representation of an actual buildings with its function. So now let's formally take the definition views of this BIM term. So there are four definitions or four important definitions I have brought in from different you know uh, references. So in one of the definition, there's it's perceived as a specific to buildings. In one of the definition, it is perceived as a specific to facility. In one of it, it is basically uh, connected with asset. In other, in the last one, which I have picked it for you, it is extending it to any built object. So let's say, so I see these four definitions as if I combine all these four definitions, it's more like the cohesive definition or cohesive understanding of building information modeling. So the first one is simply saying that it allows the creation of one or more accurate virtually digitally constructed models. And for what? To support design, construction, fabrication, and procurement activities. Quite straightforward definition. The other one is talking about the conceptual utilization of this virtually constructed model, and it is expecting it to showcase the physical and functional characteristics of a facility. And also it is talking about the collaboration platform or shared knowledge resource for information about in and forming a reliable basis. So as I have told you earlier that the BIM model should be a single source of truth so that there is no coordination, miscoordination, there is no error into the practice. And that's why this definition is extending it to a more, cohesive, more comprehensive definition to make it a reliable basis for decision during its life cycle. And this life cycle not just indicate the design stage, it also indicates the demolition, it also indicates the strategic definition or strategic planning about the building. It is about the building or facility or infrastructure. It is also talking about the construction processes or aiding into the various different construction activities, representing the construction activities in the virtual format. So actual simulations of the construction activities or construction related deployment of resources can also be there. So that if you see a video of, let's say, Synchro 4D or Pixel Manager, you would find that the construction activities nowadays can be very easily simulated in the virtual platforms, and giving a very clear insight that how the elements will move around the sites, how the construction equipments are going to be used on the site, what are the impediments in their movements, etc. Third definition, again, it is talking about the collaboration, and it's talking collaboration in a more detailed manner, that creation, collation, and exchange of 3D shared 3D models and intelligent structured data attached to them. And the last one simply takes all the definition just and extend it to any built object. So earlier the normal perception was that BIM is for buildings. Now the perception is changing and has actually changed quite a bit. And everywhere, for from a simple project to even infrastructure projects, all sorts of BIM tools are in use. Right. Saroz, any
Okay,
question
sir.
till now?
Yeah, sir. Fair enough. We have understood about the basics of the beam and how it is different from any tool. It is not just a tool,
Hmm.
but a combination of a lot of other things like managing and analytical decisions can be taken. So one thing I
Hmm.
want to ask you on behalf of the participants, most of them are from quantity surveying and cost management. So as you know that time and cost overrun is a very common
Hmm.
phenomenon all over the world in projects. So
Hmm.
how we can use this BIM in the project and how it can help us in mitigating this problems and challenges of cost overrun or schedule overrun in the project, how
Hmm.
it can be implemented.
So my opening statement in this regard would be that BIM is not going to solve anything for you automatically. So you have to take into consideration that you can visualize better uh, related to how you are deploying resources, how you are taking the decisions about the schedule and planning. So uh, I would suggest that people should uh, look into the videos of Synchro, for example, or the videos related to Bexel Manager, for example, and they should themselves look into that how the BIM models are showing you the actual schedule in practice. Okay, so you can see the building being constructed activity by activity, and then you can see that uh, what particular challenges can actually come, which you might have ignored when you are just using a spreadsheet, when you are using just discussion. Then you can basically come and have the iterations about those activities or those deployment of resources for the said activity, and change your course of action before the actual construction even has commenced. So that is how you can get a tool in your hand so that you have more control on time, more control over the schedule. So Again, I'm repeating it, that BIM itself, making a BIM model is going to do nothing for us. If we are using that BIM model and we are using the particular tool, so let's say I have made a Revit model or I have made a beautiful model on ArchiCAD. So this is not going to do anything for me. Maybe even if I do detailed documentation using that tool, it is not going to be fruitful towards time or cost overrun. We have to attach the time and cost data or rather two additional dimensions to it to understand time and cost expenditure better and have control over it, right?
Okay, okay. Fair enough. So that is one aspect. Another is, as you said, that the domain of BIM implementation has
Hmm.
gone far beyond this building. It is now
Hmm.
implemented in many infrastructure projects as well. So
Hmm.
specifically for real estate projects, I want to
Hmm.
understand that for real estate project, if I am a real estate developer, if I want to
Hmm.
implement BIM in my project, so whether it is
Hmm.
going to add value to my project, and how could I understand that yes, this is the the BIM is feasible option for me to implement in my project. So what are the parameters maybe one which I can judge that yes, I can implement BIM in my project as a real estate developer?
See, I am going to give you a feel regarding this. So I am a sole practitioner, right? And I do not have many resources to do some detailed work for me. So what I do, I create BIM models and I give all this model from the concept stage itself to my client and even the contractor, so that better understanding about the project is there. So let's say if someone is having this kind of model, this is one of the project I am currently working on, and let's say I have this model with me. This is a small building, but this is relatively complicated building for normal construction crew. So if someone is having the entire project at their fingertips, then their understanding and their acceptance about the various building segments or building zones, that their acceptance or their analysis about the finishes and how these are going to be with their requirement, it is going to be at another level, right? Rather than just providing the basic physical documents, or rather than providing some vague visualizations which are more amenable, more uh, useful for marketing, etc. You are not getting a real picture. You have to interact with this model. So currently the tool I am using is BIMX, and this is what I am currently doing is I am having all sorts of documents possible available to me, and the elements and the details which you are looking over here is actually coming out from the model. So for example, let's say if some finish is there, that finish with its name is applied into the 3D model, and that it automatically coming into my documentation, and this is linked with my actual 3D representation also, right? If this kind of basic arrangement is done by an individual like me, or individual practitioner, sole practitioner, you can easily imagine how the big real estate practices are going to get benefited out of it. This same model, this same arrangement can also be mounted onto a VR, virtual reality platform, etc., and you can have you know uh, the better understanding provided to your user, even not just your direct client or developer. The developer can engage the users to decide upon the requirement that they perceive and they are providing, and have a connect between them. So This is one of the utilization, like visualization and user connect. Another set of visualization, let me come to the data part. So, so let's say this is my model, and this is ArchiCAD. Those who do not know about ArchiCAD, it is a tool similar to Revit. I have been a user of Revit. Recently, I have started using ArchiCAD also. The parametrics of it is impressing me a little more. So I believe that the tool BIM process understanding is more essential. The tool, whatever is suiting you, you can utilize and you can take that into your practice. So I'm using data into modeling also and data into cost estimation, etc. also. For example, this toilet fixture and fittings. So this is a schedule coming out directly from the model, provided how I am defining the condition that which elements are to be targeted inside the schedule and what properties are to be visible. Similarly, let's say for toilet finishes and its its quantification, I'm using this kind of schematics, and from here also I can define what finishes or what specification, what classification I am assigning to individual elements. And this overall thing can be taken into any spreadsheet or taken directly into the documentation. And this is more accurate as compared to any manual, reading or any tool. Let's say if I compare it with Revit, so Revit is also having the scheduling thing, but uh, it's rather more detailed for me. So I have selected a different BIM tool for my detailed requirement. Revit is an excellent tool. Revit can also be attached to, let's say, a Costex or Candy or several such cost estimation tool. Similarly, like what I'm using with ArchiCAD. So again, the parameters which are embedded inside the element. So if I get into the let's say the set toilet, let's say the toilet of this first floor, and if I look at the element or the cladding element and get into the properties of this element, the specification description, this indicative subject to selection, etc. This is written. There is some ID. There is some, finishes which are associated with this element, marble, white, and gray, and that's why this schedule is showing this particular finish, which is having, marble, white, and gray. As you are seeing that the internal cladding, which is there in the front or left primary, etc., this specific specification of material is provided, and there is some remark or some keynote description which is attached to it. So currently, because I am into the decision making stage, so I have not decided finally that what specification would be finally be there. This depends to, this is subject to selection. So that's why I have made a note over here. And that's why my sheet or my layout, which is pertaining to this particular detail, toilet detail. So, so this is ground floor detail. So that's why these things are coming out to be like this, right? because this is not the text which I have typed. This is the text which is coming from the parameter. And that's how the process is made faster. The process is made dependent on the parametric behavior of the elements. Similarly, how the structural model is being seen, or how the MEP model is being utilized. So I'm showing it to you some MEP representations. And this is not very detailed MEP model, but fairly detailed for a villa kind of project, wherever the structural elements are basically interacting. So for example, this sleeve has to be inserted inside a beam in this fashion. So that has been modeled. And you can perceive, if an individual can have this kind of practice with him or her, what is possible through a team or through a collaborative, setup, right? And I have used 3D because the location of these elements, for example, are to be used to create the electrical layouts. All the text and the elevation values are derived from the 3D positioning of that element. And this element's properties, which are to be depicted over here in a documentation, etc., is coming out from the information model that I have created, right? So again, if you are just using BIM for a basic 3D, it can be done, but this is not that useful. But if you are creating a structure around it, then it's very impressive, right? So this building you are looking at, right? And I would like to show you a little bit insight of how it is coming out in real, because of the model. I think there is some issue with the cursor. कुछ तो issue है cursor में. Anyway, let's go ahead.
It's certainly understood, sir. No
Uh,
issues. We have understood means how real estate developers and in real estate how we can get benefit from the its entire very detailed explanations we have got. Next one question is there, for any change to make in any organization, basically there is a lot of means resistance from the organization because people generally lack the skills which are related to any change, maybe a software or any system that is getting in place in an organization. So if we are implementing BIM in any organization, so what should be taken care of previous to implementation of BIM so that it can be smoothly implemented in that organization?
See, there are various different types of implementations. So nationwide implementation could be there. Normal regional implementations could be there. So let's say in this Mumbai region, how things are in practice, NCA region, how things are in practice. And there is organizational implementation. Organizational implementation is basically inspired or being imposed by these regulations coming out from the region or nation, right? So let's say if the project is desired to be done, so in the contract it is written that the model has to be created in BIM manner. So a BIM model has to be submitted. You have no option but to create one, right? So but then how it is in practice, that there are BIM consultancies there. They are making the model for the consultants and for the contractors. So the actual BIM model utilization or the information utilization by the consultants, contractors, executioner, etc. This is not there. Okay. So one thing about the organizational implementation is, what is your expectation? So first, there is need of the setting of good expectation or value inducing expectation that should be there. Like, I need to be more structured into the data management. I need to be more accurate in the documentation that I create. If I have these expectations, and with these expectations, I am bringing building information model, then there would be different implementation. If as against if I am just following the trend, if I am just following the fashion that okay, BIM is a tool, this looks cool, this looks nice, this has to be implemented. So let's say some visionary leader of the organization has this vision that this is a cool tool, let's implement it. So this is uh, bound to get doomed, this whole implementation. But if you are having the expectation that yes, I have to have all the documentation, all the coordination requirement coming out from it, because this is having these facilities embedded inside it, this process has to be. Then the next thing is, there are individuals who are going to drive this implementation. So there should be specific identification of these individuals. There should be champions in each department of these organizations, which can create the bridge between what is to come and what has been there, right? So if, let's say, I am to implement any particular tool into my department, the other people who are very good at the existing tools or existing processes, they have they would have this fear of getting obsolete. They would have this uh, repulsion from this new tool. That why? Because I have been effective all this along, so why this new need? So there has to be some gradual transformation from what has been to what is to be. Okay. And for that, there should be some change agents to be induced, which needs to be very talented, which needs to be very capable in the existing workflows, and which needs to be knowing, who needs to be knowing the connection between the old and new. So these champions are going to drive the implementation. Then the implementation, again, if you look at any industry, there are three dimensions: normative, socio-cognitive, and regulatory. So we have talked about, if there are regulatory requirements that ICT tools or information and communication tools are to be embedded into practices, you will do it. But how you will do it depends upon what are the regional norms, what are the regional behaviors of people in that particular. So let's say if you are implementing something in Bihar, or if you are implementing something in Delhi, there has to be different program for it, because you need to take into account the people aspect to it, and then you can create the processes. So if you read something into book that this, you have to take step 1, step 2, step 3, and you take these steps into Bihar, you take these steps into Delhi, so maybe Delhi one will be successful and Bihar will not, or vice versa. So you have to understand all three dimensions, that what kind of regulations are into practice, what kind of normative behaviors are into practice, and what is the socio-cognitive pattern existing there, how people perceive a problem in that particular region or organization.
That's right. That's right. Fair enough. So I would request participants also to ask their questions if they want to know anything about BIM. It's a very good opportunity to know this subject from Mr. Shrutiniwas Sharma. So you can write your questions in the chat box. Apart from it, there is one more question that we have regarding the career progression. So if someone who is a project manager or a quantity surveyor or a cost
Hmm.
manager, so they are dealing with the project control or the cost control. So what should be their knowledge? What should they learn about BIM so that they can have a good chance of career progression? What should be their knowledge in this way? So I'd like to know from
So
you.
So as I have said, that there are BIM authoring tools and BIM management tools, BIM related analytical tools. So you need to have a basic understanding of all these tools, that how parametrics act, how parameters are embedded. Let's say I am considering a structural column, what kind of elements or identification parameter, or how the accurate volume will be calculated. So this needs to be understood by the person, right? Or at least he should have this orientation, that see, you cannot learn all the tools, but you can understand the process. So basic knowledge has to be there. Okay, related to what your practice is going to be, how, whether you are going to plan for the activities, where whether you are going to quantify the two elements, and whether you are going to relate the quantification with cost, whether you are going to relate the quantification with the resource requirement, resource deployment. So the basic understanding is required. Then the BIM related, again, expectation needs to be there with you, that you expect that BIM is going to do it for you. BIM authoring tool is going to do it, or is able to do it for you. You need to understand this. So you need to have a basic, hands-on experience with the BIM authoring tool, even though you are not an architect or you are not a structural modeler, right? So you need to have basic understanding of authoring tool, but for BIM management tools, you need to have better hands-on experience. For let's say if you have to take quantity estimation and you are using Bexel manager, so you should be very much up up with the the facilities provided by the tool. Or if you are having Synchro Pro into your organization, so whatever your organization is using, you need to take a good look at that particular tool, and it's very easy. So the basic thing is that you just do not think that BIM is good. You do the work in BIM, you do the work of modeling, you do the work of quantity estimation or planning or scheduling, etc. Then automatically you will get into the nuances part, that okay, I am having this problem, so let's solve it. So the nuanced control over the work you are supposed to do, that you have to take, and obviously you will progress. From the career perspective, if you write something like, okay, I am good with Revit, and people are currently not very good judge of the Revit skill set in your organization, you will be taken. But again, in practice, you are not going to be very happy, you are not going to be very efficient, and eventually people are going to learn about it. So what my point is, that currently these BIM tools, at least in Indian perspective, I'm going to say that these BIM tools are not thoroughly used, not ideally used, and that's why the acceptance about these tools is less. If there is proper workflows in place, and organizational units are being productive using these tools, then obviously the expectation, the acceptance of these tools or about these tools will come naturally inside organizations. So these are some of the points related to implementation and related to career progression also. And in my opinion, the core knowledge should always be given the highest priority. The tool related knowledge is your side work, right? So tool related knowledge is easy to gain. You have YouTube videos, you have the tutorial videos provided by the software manufacturers themselves. So my expectation would be that you keep exploring the tool part, but you get a good hold on the actual workflow knowledge.
Okay, okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you for sharing all your insights. Basically, we are coming towards the culmination of this webinar. So I was
Mhm.
waiting for some of the questions, if there are some questions, but before that, I would like to share one of our program that we are launching. So before culminating, I would like to share with all the participants and all of you and the program that we are launching in the month of June. It's about the contracts. So this is a pretty contracts. I hope it's not busy. Just a minute. Here, yeah, I hope it's visible. So this is basically a master class on petty contracts, as petty contracts are globally accepted worldwide. It's a balanced contract. So we are conducting one master class on petty contract in the month of June, and it's a very affordable price. It's extensive master class of 8 hours, and we will be providing CPD certificates as well. So those who are interested can enroll us, and they can contact us on our number and on our email ID as well. This is the offer for today. It's priced at $320, but for today we are providing it for $64. So this is one of the offer that we are providing for the today's participants. Okay, so okay, thank you all. Sudhiniwas sir, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yes, sir. So that was all for today's session. Thank you very much for coming for this session, and we are really very obliged to have you on this program. I want to have your final words for today's session about something that we can carry along with us about BIM, something from you.
Thank you, Saroj. Thank you, Nomamita, for giving me an opportunity over here. It's always good for us to share whatever we are doing in order to have, articulation of our thoughts. So we do a little on our part, but when we give it to someone, we have the opportunity of connecting the dots, connecting the thought lines, so it gives us more clarity. So it's a always a double benefit uh, to someone who is serious enough to get to hear someone, and for us, for people like us who are trying to articulate something for others, and this gives us better clarity in our own practice. So thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. And we will hope to see you in our upcoming webinars maybe once again. Thank you very much for sharing your knowledge. Thanks a lot.
Thank
And
you.
thanks to all the participants who attended today's program. You can connect us on our website, www.alphapmc.com. You can follow us on our LinkedIn, as well as you can follow our YouTube channel as well. So thank you for all your participations, and I wish you all the best and have a good day. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.